Yeah, you got it. Uh, I got to thinking about this, Brother Andy, a few weeks ago in Bible study. We had that chapter for our Bible study lesson in Hebrews chapter 12. Now, I'm going to be reading from the King James Version. If you don't have King James Version, don't worry. Morgan's going to put it on the screen for you. Hebrews chapter 12, verse 1. Wherefore, seeing we also are compassed about with so great a cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside every weight and the sin which doeth so easily beset us, and let us run with patience the race that is set before us. Question for you. Do you think we have that cloud of witnesses today? I do. I'm a firm believer in that. I'd like for you to stop for just a minute, each one of you. You stop and think about somebody in your past that has been a witness to you for whatever reason. It could be your mom, dad, a sibling, a friend, maybe just an acquaintance. But somebody that has been a witness to you, and you remember that. I'd like for us to do something just a little bit different. I'd like to ask each one of you to stand for just a minute. Now, we're not going to move around. I'm not going to let everybody hug each other. What I'd like for you to do, that witness that you have thought about, I'd like for you to just turn to the person next to you, share that name with them. That name is off. No discussion, just share that name and put that witness in your life, not a them. Okay? Thank you. Now turn to the person on the other side, if there's somebody on the other side, and share it with them. Okay? Thank you. Now you can be seated. Don't that make you feel just a little bit better to share somebody that was a witness to you with your friend? You know what I saw? I saw a cloud of witnesses. I don't know how many we've got in here. 75, 80. That's pretty good size little cloud of witnesses. Think what kind of group like that could do. But you each one shared your witness with one another. But I have an advantage on you today. I'm going to get to share my witness with all of them. His name was Homer Walker. Homer passed away several years ago, but one simple phrase from that man, a very quiet man, changed my life. You look at him and you say, oh, that's just a little thing. Okay? That's just a little thing. I'd like to call your attention to some little things. Men, have you ever thought about how we tend to have buttons on our cuffs? How long has it been around? I did some research on that, and I found that hundreds of years ago, there was a great king noticed that his soldiers was using their sleeves instead of their handkerchiefs. So he set people to work, and they came up with buttons on their cuffs. Hundreds of years ago, we still have a little thing. Could you be that person that needs to button down all the loose ends and be serious about your role as a believer, or maybe even your involvement in this church? Someone once complained, what I say doesn't matter. My influence is like dropping a button. Okay? Maybe so. But you know, a drop can be very important. because it depends on what's in that bucket. For instance, one little drop of water in a bucket of certain acid can cause an explosion. Just a little thing. Could you be that drop in a bucket that could cause this church to explode for Christ? Have you ever thought about this? It's only small birds that you hear sing. They sing so sweetly. You ever heard an eagle sing? What about an ostrich? No. Always a little bird, like a canary, robin, lark. They sing so sweetly. Again, little thing. Could you be that little one that could make things sweeter at this church? Several years ago, I was driving down a road over in Sequatchie County where I was raised, and my car went cut and quick. Now, most of you that know me know my mechanical skills are slim to none. But like a Monticello mechanic, I get out of the car. And as I get out, my first thought was the motor missing? Well, I walk over and I raise the hood. To my surprise, nope, it's still there. So I looked around a little bit, and I noticed this big blue canister sitting up on top of the engine. I took my hand and I slapped on it a few times and tried to start the car. And I didn't do it. So as I looked a little more, I saw a little round thing about this big around, about that tall, had a wire coming out of it. Well, you know, you people that know me know I always carry a pocket knife. So I get my pocket knife out and I tap on the side of that thing. Go back, try it. No, that didn't help either. So there I was. What do? I stand there and look like that module mechanic that I'm not. In a few minutes, along came a car. Guy stopped and said, "Anything I can do to help you?" I said, "There sure is. I don't know what's wrong." So he goes over to the engine and turns the thing and takes that big blue canister off and sits it over to the side. Jiggles up on the side of that thing there and he said, "Yep, let's get the gas." Well, okay. Kept on fooling around there and then he says, "You ready to?" I think we got a pair of pliers and screwdriver in the glove box. He said, "Can I see them again?" Sure. So I go get them, bring them to him, and just a few minutes he tightens up a little bolt, screw or something, those tubes. And that bolt he tied that little wire on. He snaps right. Please don't. Start it. Little wire. Okay. The lesson here is an engine with hundreds of parts. One little thing, like a little wire, can cause that thing to malfunction and not run. Now, could you be that loose connection here at this church that could help keep things running smoothly? Someone once said, the beginnings of faithfulness are always the little things that we think make no difference. Back to my witness. One little phrase. Who was that man? What did he say? Okay, I'm going to tell you. Homer was the dad of one of my best friends as I was growing up. His name was Edward. My family and I had to walk somewhere in the neighborhood of 2 miles to church. And Edward and his family, they walked about 2 miles from the other direction. On Sundays, weather permitting, I'd walk home with Edward that afternoon. The next time we was at church, we'd go home with me. And Linda, I bet, remember, you and Rebecca used to maybe do the same thing. But as we grew older, vehicles came to be part of our families. We didn't have to walk to church anymore. And we're thinking back a long time ago. In May 1958, our little church was having a revival. And on, I guess it was on Sunday night, the preacher that had been preaching said, I think we ought to go another week because there had been no news, nobody saved, nothing, just a series of meetings. So they agreed to go for another week. And on Tuesday night of the next week, the preacher was in the pulpit preaching, and all of a sudden, he fell down. He couldn't get up. Of course, the men in the church rushed up to the front to see what's going on. Somebody said, get a car over here at the door, we're running to the hospital. His wife said, no, there's no need of that. He's not eating anything in over a week. He's fasting to see people saved. So the men put him in his car, drove him home, they had settled down and came back to church. And they started discussing, do we have more meetings or do we stop? They finally decided to go ahead and have a meeting next night. Wednesday night, guess who appeared? The preacher came back. And when he got up to speak, he said, God's promised me that I'd see somebody saved this week. So I ate good today. I feel a lot better. So most of you older folks will remember back in those days when the invitation came along, people would come back and talk to you and try to encourage you to come up front and pray. Sometimes they did a little more than encourage. They almost would drag you up there. But on Thursday night, my friend Edward and I sat, I guess maybe on the last pew, maybe one, come on in, Edward does now. And during the invitation time, several people came back talking to us. Of course, being young men that we thought we were, we was not paying a whole lot of attention to it. But the preacher walked back there and he said, boys, you don't have to go up front to be saved. You can do it right here to be saved. I really don't know if Edward nailed it or not. I did. And lots of people gathered around and started praying. How long was we there? I don't know. After a few minutes, somebody in the group, and I don't even know who it was, said, be saved and don't know it. Guess what? I got it. I guess I'm saved. They dismissed church, went outside. Us young people, we were kind of outside, talking, going on. I'm walking, my witness walked up to me, put his hand on my shoulder. He said, Herb, don't let anybody tell you you're saved.